Thank you. Well, welcome everyone to the August 26, 2020 meeting of the City of Edina Planning Commission. We have one item on our agenda tonight, one public hearing that is, and that is for a first floor height variance and front yard variance for a new home at 4209 Crocker Avenue. And the variance request, a variance request was approved for this site earlier this year, but due to revised grading plans for the project, the Planning Commission must review it again. As you're all probably familiar by now, we're conducting our meeting by Zoom instead of in person to comply with the governor's stay-at-home order, and we appreciate everyone for your participation. Just briefly, we want, even though we're I say this before every meeting, but even though we're meeting by Zoom, we're still receiving feedback from the public and reviewing the feedback. We're getting feedback on the city's website, bettertogetheredina.org. We're getting, sometimes get feedback by voicemail to the city's call-in number, and we also get feedback from an email link on the city's website for the Planning Commission and City Council, and all that feedback gets reviewed. But if you'd like to participate tonight, we'll give you a call-in number during the public hearing if you'd like to participate at that time. If you previously provided your feedback through one of the other methods, however, you don't feel like you need to. We've already repeat yourself. So that said, we're hoping we can call the meeting to order. And Staff Member Olson, would you be willing to do the roll?
Thank you. Commissioner Berube? Commissioner Agnew?
Here.
Commissioner Miranda? Commissioner Strauss?
Here.
Commissioner Thorson?
Present.
Chair Nemerov?
I'm here, and I believe Commissioner Bennett has joined also.
Thank you. Commissioner Bennett?
Here.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's the roll. Our next item on our agenda is to approve the agenda. Has everyone had a chance to review it? I'll ask staff and commissioners if there are any changes to the agenda. If they're not, if someone can make a resolution to
I move to approve the agenda as submitted.
Okay. Staff Member Olson, would you do a roll?
Thank you. Commissioner Berube? Commissioner Agnew?
Aye.
Commissioner Miranda?
Aye.
Commissioner Strauss?
Aye.
Commissioner Thorson?
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett?
Aye.
Chair Nemerov?
Aye. And for people who are just who rarely participate in planning commission meetings, we're going to do roll votes on every item because that's how we officially record it. When we're present, sometimes the votes can go a lot faster. But if you only participate in one planning commission meeting, there's going to be several roll votes that we wouldn't ordinarily need to do. So just thank you. The next item on our agenda are the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Does everyone have any changes?
I move approval of the minutes as submitted.
Second. Well, there was a rush. All right. Staff Member Olson, do you have who motioned and seconded?
I do. Thank you.
Could you do a roll, please?
Commissioner Berube? Commissioner Agnew?
Aye.
Commissioner Miranda?
Aye.
Commissioner Strauss?
Aye.
Commissioner Thorson?
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett?
Aye.
Chair Nemerov?
Aye. And that takes us to our public hearing tonight for the first floor height and front yard setback variance for a home at 4209 Crocker. I believe Assistant City Planner Chris Ocker will be presenting for the city.
Yes, thank you. Can everybody see the PowerPoint?
No, nothing yet.
Okay. So this is a return item. You have seen it previously. It was approved on March 11th, 2020. It is for a 2.6 foot first floor height variance and an 18.2 foot front yard setback variance to construct a new home. The only change in plans is the grading plan. Trying to see. I'm sorry, I'm having a difficult time trying to get this up.
It's up, but the screen is black.
The screen is black?
Yeah, at least that's what I'm getting on mine.
Come on in. Come on in. Sorry. No, it's okay. So, stop sharing and let's start again. Upload. And then that one. Maybe double click it. There you go. Okay, there you go. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Good luck. Thank you. So everybody can see it now? So 2.6 foot first floor height variance and an 18.2 foot front yard setback variance for the new home. It was approved on March 11th, 2020. Subject property is located on the east side of Crocker. It had a one-story home on it previously. It was a walkout rambler. That has since been demoed. The previous home had a front yard setback of 36.7 feet, which is forward of the average on the block. And therefore, that's why it required the 18.2 foot front yard setback variance. The average on the block is actually 56.9 feet. This was the approved grading and drainage and erosion control plan, stormwater management plan for the property that was part of the package that was approved. It had some underground pipe storage. This is the new plan. That element has been removed, and we do have some engineering staff here that can address the changes in this plan. It will be storage in the rear yard area with a retaining wall along the back. The reason why they needed a first floor height variance is they had to elevate the basement. It's no longer going to be a walkout. It will be a lookout. So they'll have a lookout window with elevations of 875.25, which is 2 feet above the low opening requirement. All of the plans remain the same in terms of design, floor plan. They're identical to the plans that were approved in March. The only two plans that are different, this plan is the pier plan for the foundation, and that has been signed by an engineer, and that's part of the package that goes with the building department, building permit plans. So all of these plans that you're reviewing are the ones that were reviewed back in March. So this is a rendering, again, same rendering that you saw back in March, showing the approved plan in context with the home to the north, which actually fronts 42nd Street, and then the house to the south that fronts Crocker. There are a number of homes on the block that have been rebuilt, and they are larger than some of the homes that had been there previously. The homes that are wider and larger are on lots that are similar to this lot. This lot is a 90-foot wide lot. Some of the lots are 100 feet wide, and then there's a number of lots that are 50 feet wide. So you have a variety of housing styles along the block. And a lot of times it's obviously the face print of the house is going to be narrower because of the width of the lot. So with that, I will stop and answer any questions you may have. We, again, do have engineering staff available to address the changes in the grading plan.
Very much, Ms. Ocker. Does anyone on the Planning Commission have questions for staff? And right now, I can't see anyone, so just okay. Now I can see a few people. Do any members of any commissioners have questions for staff? All right, Chris, I have a couple, and if everyone else has, can you give us a little better? Can you give just why are we here tonight? Maybe give us a little history lesson.
Sure. The variance was approved based on the plans presented, which included the grading plan. And there was some discussion at the March meeting about having to keep the house forward, given having to provide that storage in the rear yard. So because the variance was tied to the plans presented, which included the grading plan, then it needs to come back to the Planning Commission for their review.
Okay, thanks. Does anyone else have any questions? Commissioner Agnew.
This is probably a question that may have to be passed on to the engineer. But how does the water storage of the original proposed tanks compare to the new storage available in the new plan?
Very good question for Ross or Zuli in the engineering department. They'd be able to cover that.
Thank you.
Hello, Commission members. My name is Ross Bittner. I'm the Engineering Services Manager for the city.
Ross, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Could you speak a little louder, please?
Sure, I'll get the microphone right up in there. I'm joined today by Zuli Marquez, who performed the review on behalf of our department, and she can help me out if we have any really detailed questions. But generally, we set a performance standard that the applicant must meet, and the performance standard is to make sure that there's not an increase in risk to the nearby private properties. This home is challenged because it has a landlocked basin and an unplanned overflow from Crocker Avenue into the rear yards. So we provided the applicant with the risk elevations in both the front and the rear, and they got to choose how they were going to address that. To meet that performance standard, both the past application and this one are equivalent, so we see them as both meeting the performance standard. I know we got into a little back and forth at the last meeting about whether this home should be required to improve the situation for the neighborhood. And while that's not generally our request, it's just no net increase in risk, the reduction of that emergency overflow or that overflow from the street into the rear yards here does actually improve it for the neighborhood. Because the lot's landlocked and because they've chosen to remove the piping, you'll see in the rear yard of the grading plan now, there's more low open area. I think that'll answer the question. And I can go on if you guys want more.
Yeah, so what I heard, and I'm going to play it back and tell me if I'm wrong, is that both the original plan that we reviewed in March and the plan we're reviewing today, they're similar in that they both meet the performance standard that was set, correct?
That's correct.
Do we know how they compare from like a total volume of water expected to alleviate perspective? Are they similar in that approach as well?
Yeah, the performance standard didn't change, so they had to carry the same amount of water.
Okay, because I guess where I'm trying to understand is, like, is a performance standard like a really wide range that maybe they were at 100 and now they're at 80, but they're still within the standard, or are both very comparable from a water storage standpoint and they're both at that 100 range? Or
Yep. It's an exact number for how they chose to come at the problem.
okay, thank you.
Strauss, I believe, and then Commissioner Berube will come to you next.
Yes, thank you. Ross, just, I think for a fuller explanation, my understanding, I mean, the previous approved plan was a series of underground tanks and then a release from those tanks to some sort of storm outlet. I mean, that, I'm perhaps, rather than me try to explain it, maybe, could you maybe just get into some of the specific engineering, the details of how they were holding water and discharging it versus the current design, how that accomplishes, and from what you're saying is they both meet your requirements or your performance standard. Perhaps just a little clearer depiction of the actual facility that's sort of, or what's being installed.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Member Strauss. And if you'd welcome it, I'll share my screen and bring up the site and grading plan. All right. Can you see the screen? All right, seeing some nods and thumbs up. All right, this is the revised grading plan. And north and south, behind the proposed house, is a retaining wall. And that retaining wall breaks the grade up between the small usable backyard that is at a lookout level of the house and a much lower area to the east. The prior plan had a low area to the east, but it had a larger flat backyard adjacent to the lookout elevation, and underneath that larger flat area was planned a series of storage pipes. So when we're looking at the design, the functional equivalency between the storage pipes combined with open low area and a larger low area here, they function the same. The elevation between Crocker Avenue and that landlocked area in the rear yard has been raised, and raised intentionally. In our stormwater risk models, we saw the potential for flooding in Crocker Avenue to actually head east through the side yard of this property and then cascade and spill into the backyard here. And that's not a condition we wanted to see. And the builder and homeowner were able to create their plan in a way that cuts that flow path off. So that's a secondary benefit.
If I can just jump in right now. Commissioners Agnew and Strauss, you've asked questions somewhat about the stormwater. Do you have any follow-up questions after these explanations from City Engineer? Otherwise, Commissioner Berube, I think you had some questions. Would you like to ask them now?
Yeah, I've got a quick question for Mr. Bittner. So there were a couple things in the previous proposal, the one we heard in March regarding this house. One was the height and one was the setback. The argument for a variance for the setback from the street was that they needed the space to put those underground tanks in. Under this alternative way to mitigate the water or the potential water damage, do they need that amount of space? Is the space required similar to what they needed to put the tanks in?
Thank you, Commission Member Berube. I see the tanks as not the primary issue, it's the amount of storage. So if you look at the retaining wall in the image I have on the screen, it essentially cuts the site into almost 2 equal parts. And the size of the bowl on the east side, I think is functionally as large as what's as large as it needs to be, but it's also as large as it can be, unless they were to shrink up that backyard segment that they do have, which is mostly deck right now. So the choice to put more of that storage underground could buy them a little bit more flat area. But yeah, like if you're asking if we could move the house back, I don't see a functional way to make that bowl the same volume when we know we can't store it under house. That would be ruinously expensive and the elevations are wrong. But this is a question for the applicant. Since we give the performance standard, I'm just speculating, and they might be able to better address what's possible. All of these trade-offs come with, costs and benefits and trade-offs. But they're making those, not the city.
Thank you.
Other commissioners have questions for staff?
I have a question for Planner Aker. If we can go back.
Yes, we definitely can do that.
Thank you. So I just want to be clear on what we are really looking at here. Do we look at this as though this is brand new and we didn't do anything in March? Or do we look at this saying we thought the height was okay and we thought the setback was okay because of what they needed to do in the backyard for the water? And now we're just looking at, is this alternative way to address the water appropriate? So is this a brand new proposal and we start with a blank sheet of paper, or are we saying, is the new proposal to mitigate the water situation or address the water situation really what we're talking about?
It's not a blank piece of paper. I mean, you have history, you've reviewed the project. There's been a change to the project, so we have to bring it back in front of the Planning Commission. They are asking for the entire package for the revariances. Does this significantly change things? I guess that becomes the question.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for staff? I have another question for Planner Rocker. One of the comments we received from the through public correspondence, and I may have other questions about public correspondence later, public feedback later, was that this was a 7,800 square foot house. My understanding was the original house wasn't that size. Is that a correct estimate? Is the house changing at all, or is it the same house? And do you know where the 7,800 number comes from?
I can't address that number. If you look at the plans, including the sport court, it comes out to be about 5,400 square feet. That would include the basement. That does not include the garage, which is part of the house, but in terms of square footage of homes, you generally don't count a garage area. I can't really address where someone else's numbers came up from.
And is this basically the same house we saw a few months ago?
It's exactly the same house. The dates on the plans are the same with the exception of the grading plan and then the additional plan for the piers in
Thank
the
you.
foundation.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any further questions for staff? If not, of course, we'll have an opportunity later when we have planning commission discussion if you have any other questions at that time. Hearing none, I'd like to. Oh, Commissioner Miranda.
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry. You would.
No problem.
All you.
Sure. So there seem to be a few questions in terms of correspondence from Jonathan Gross asking about limits of flooding and things he can do on his property. Is that something we can discuss or make part of this recommendation?
I believe if somebody wants to do something on their property, they would need to go through the review and permitting process for their property. So I don't believe that would be part of this discussion. And you're referring to some grading, possibly?
Yeah. He talked about putting up the edge of his property a few feet higher for special conditions. And, is that something that would have to come back for another request?
I would have Ross Bittner answer that question.
Mission member Miranda, yeah, we saw the correspondence earlier today, and our response to John was that he should apply for a grading permit, and he's going to he'll be under the same standards as the applicant, where we have to make sure that it doesn't increase risk to nearby private properties.
Okay, great. Thank you.
If I can just add on a little tag to that, that plan may not even be a planning commission matter, right? The person was asking for our approval there's a good chance it may not even require planning commission approval. Is that fair? You'd have to see the plans. Any further? I'm sorry, Mr. Bittner?
It's highly unlikely that a grading permit of that size would ever come to the planning commission.
Yeah. Any further questions for staff at this time? Again, we'll have more chance later. Okay, well then I'd like to offer the applicant. I see the homeowners and I believe the developer are on the call, and I don't know which of you would like to speak. Have at it. We'd like to hear from you.
Hey everybody, I'm Brett.
Sarah.
We're the homeowners. And so I one question that was asked about that might be better answered by the homeowners. We spent a long time trying to figure out how to store 25,000 plus cubic feet of water on the property. And we actually even asked if we could move. We actually have tried to say, can we move the house back a couple of feet, or because we've talked with the neighbors a lot. And if we move it back at all, essentially we won't be able to store the volume of water that we need to have stored. And yeah, the functionality between the pipes and the basically what's now just an extended rain garden is the same. The hope with the pipes was that we would have more usable backyard. And so that was the hope with the pipes, is it would give us a bit more usable backyard. But the essentially the cost of the pipes was out of the range of what we would get a loan for. And so that's sort of what we were approved for at the loan level once we got into the work there. And so we, instead of having the usable backyard, we're going to have basically a giant ditch in the back that can store 25,000 cubic square feet, which is fine, of water. And so that's the that's I guess the answer to that question.
That's why the change.
Yeah, and that's the only reason we're changing it is that it's not for nothing on the house has changed, nothing anywhere else has changed. It is just the way we're able to mitigate the 100-year. Basically, we have to be able to prevent or be ready for a 100-year flood and be able to store that much water in case of that. And so one way to do it was potentially have the underground pipes, and but that became unfeasible. And so now this is the other way to do it.
And, I think we're trying to do our best to make this go as smooth as possible. We've reached out to the neighborhood and done, provide our phone numbers, emails to try and, get to know folks, answer questions. We had an informal meet and greet when this new plan kind of got developed, COVID friendly, just right out in front of the property. Again, meet folks, and largely, very supportive, lots of good questions. We got some ideas on future rain garden plants from one of the neighbors down the street. And, I think overall it feels like folks feel, have been supportive and, we're excited to hopefully move forward.
Yeah, we were there last night again and we're hanging out with a lot of the neighbors last night. And so generally speaking, it feels like everybody has been supportive. And actually excited to have kind of a nice house rather than or even house that was there prior.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have questions for the applicants?
So you mentioned that you've spoken to a lot of the neighbors. People in general are positive. I'm curious though, have they shared with you the letters that they've submitted, or have you had a chance to see those? And I'm wondering if you have any comments about any of those.
The ones that were submitted the today for the
in the last week or so, yeah.
So no, we saw one that was submitted. I've actually texted with the backyard neighbor John, who submitted the one about making the improvements on his property, and we've said we're happy to work with you, or if we can be helpful, let us know. The other one that was submitted, we've talked with them a lot of times, and we're trying to work with them. Actually, we have an issue there too, because there's some pump drains on the property right now, and so we actually are trying to help them with can we help you while we're under construction to move it, or help there while we have equipment there, and so we're trying to work with them.
We provided the plans and
we had several calls with them actually ahead of this with them about the plan and what we're doing, and try to just make it clear that we understand you want us to move it back 9 feet, but we can't because we can't. We would love to. I would be happy to move it back 9 feet if I didn't have to store if we could store 20,000 cubic feet of water instead of 25,000 cubic feet of water. We'd be happy to do that, and we can't go deeper because of where the water table is. So we literally can't. We hired an outside engineering firm to help us think through what other ways could we do this, and essentially there's unfortunately none. It's about we can't move it back. We've tried, and so we've tried to have those conversations, and we have had those conversations actually.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for the applicant? Well, I have one, and I'm going to apologize for asking it up front. But it kind of gets to the history, and this is more of an improvement question. Mm-hmm. It seemed like there was a misunderstanding somewhere along the road about, and there was at least one misunderstanding, and I'm wondering, I want to phrase this, I want you to listen very carefully to I'm phrasing this because I mean this well. Is there something, if there was a misunderstanding about when demolition could begin, is there something the city could do to make it more clear about that, or was there a misunderstanding, or because we received a complaint that demolition began before it should, and maybe that's a misunderstanding. But I'm wondering if there is something the city could do to improve the process to avoid that kind of misunderstanding in the future.
Yeah. So obviously Sarah and I aren't builders, or we don't, so we might not be the most, and I think Mike is on, our builder is on, but I guess the only thing I'd say is Mike, you go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, well, I'm Mike Linder with MJL Homes. I'm the contractor that'll be building the house. And yes, I did receive a call from the city in regards to, there was a complaint from a few of the neighbors saying I'm starting construction on the house without picking up the building permit. Well, in this situation, there's two permits. There's a demolition permit and there's a building permit. I picked up the demolition permit to demo the house and you know, get it ready for, you know, digging up the basement and what have you. And then all of a sudden the wheels came off the cart and they said, you got to stop. You know, the neighbors are upset that you're building a house and you don't have a building permit picked up. It's all ready to pick up. It's been approved and just sitting there. I just didn't go in with a check to pick that building permit up because I wasn't ready for it. I was still in the demo stage. And so then when the city called, I said, you know what, I still have foundation walls still standing. And so I wasn't even close to starting building. You know, I think things just get a little twisted. They get a little revved up a little bit, just like the 7,800 square feet. There's never been 7,800 square feet on that house. And so, you know, there's just a lot of prep work before you can start building. And that's basically what we were doing, is just prepping. And as of today, the old foundation wall is still standing on the lot. So we're not even done demoing.
I actually talked to one of the neighbors also about this. And so like, I'll give you like just some feedback on that. So I actually talked to one of the neighbors that was on, not the one that submitted the thing about it today, that made the submission today that we saw. I talked to one of the other neighbors while we were doing all this, and he said, he's like, honestly, Brett, like, I just didn't know what was going on. Like, I just don't, you know, I had no idea, and, you know, what's demo, what's building, and so I think he actually might have been one of the people that called, of like, and he said it was more to find out, like, what's the norm, on that side. So, and he actually, yeah. But it was a good conversation. So that was,
Yeah, so we stopped. Once the city contacted me and brought it to my attention that the neighbors had brought this to their attention, we stopped demo immediately. We pulled off the equipment, and here we are. And if I can touch on a little bit of that, the way the backyard grading was approved with the pipes versus how it is today. Like Brett had mentioned earlier, it's purely a cost thing. Doing the pipes, and the reason why we originally did the pipes, because they wanted to have usable backyard for their kids. And by putting the pipes in the ground, that would allow them like 39 feet of flat, usable backyard. They would have been playing over the top of these pipes that we would have had dug into the ground. But when the cost came in, because of, you know, we had to hurry and get this done because of the variance and stuff, we didn't have all of our cost in. And so once the variance got approved, before we started ordering things, the cost came in, and it was, you know, $160,000, to be honest with you. And it just did not make any sense to spend $160,000, which is going to be very hard to justify for a mortgage company. And so we went back to the drawing board, and we said to the engineers, we said, we got to figure out something different. And so what he did is he just moved that retaining wall back as far as we possibly could to capture the volume that we needed for the water in that backyard. And that wall is at 5 feet off the back deck's footing. And we need that for frost protection. We can't move it. So the house can't go back anymore. And in the backyard now, we just lucked out that it just turned out that way, that where the retaining wall is, from there to the back property line, just left us enough volume to store the water that was required to be stored. So that's basically it wasn't anything more than just a cost thing. The Brett and Sarah would have loved to have had those pipes put in there, but at the end of the day, when it comes time to close the house, there just wouldn't be enough funds. The mortgage company would not give any value to that. So that's where we're at right now. It just, the house stayed the same. Nothing changed as far as the square footage on the house. We're just doing grading.
Well, thank you to the applicants and to Mr. Lindor for your answering the question. It sounds like, if I could just summarize, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, it sounds like there really wasn't any misunderstanding of the city's processes and there aren't any improvements. But if there was a misunderstanding, it was just a misunderstanding of where you were at in your processes. And there aren't necessarily any change we could do because it was working fine. Is that fair?
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm just, it was just a misunderstanding where we were at, and we were just, and just so everyone knows that, you know, the building permit is approved and all ready to go. We just didn't pick it up because we didn't need to at this point because we weren't at that stage. We were still demoing.
And it sounds like from your perspective regarding the water management, I'm trying to think of the right cliche, but it worked out. I can't come up with a really good cliche. You had the right space.
Yeah, we got lucky. I mean, that's exactly what it is. We got lucky because, you know,
I think, I mean, we'd love to have, I mean, honestly, like, we'd love to have, like, more, like, high ground with lawn, but yeah, we'll, you know, we have to store it, so we'll store it. And, yeah. Good.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Brohl, if you...
No, I'm sorry. I'm good.
I was just going to ask if other commissioners have any further questions for the applicant. Commissioner Agnew?
Yeah, kind of going off of what you were just saying there of, you know, you might not be getting everything out of this house and this space that you wanted to. You would like some more outdoor space. Have you considered looking elsewhere, looking for another lot within our community?
We love the neighborhood, right? I mean, like, it's.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a financial amount that we've already spent and kind of invested here. We've spent a year of time from the time we bought this, but this is the neighborhood we want to be in. We, you know, kind of zeroed in on it when we started our home search. As Brett mentioned, we've been participating in various events over the summer. We've had some food trucks come through, so we've been over there doing that. So, you know, we feel like we're invested here, and we want to make this work.
We've heard Halloween's killer in the neighborhood, and well, maybe not. Who knows what this year will look like? But we've heard it's awesome. And I mean, yeah. At the end of the day, we'll have a deck that I can still barbecue and smoke meats on, and
great parks right
and
nearby.
there's a Weber Park right next door. But yeah, so we truly love the neighborhood, and that's why it's like, let's stick with it and try and like make it work. And you know, we can, and still also we also with the plan that we have now, we can afford it, right? We can do it, and we can afford it, and we can finish it, and we can complete it as well. And so we're comfortable there as well, like comfortable with what we're getting ourselves into. We think. I mean, who knows what we're getting ourselves into? I guess, but
Okay.
We're doing our best.
I know what an investment it really is, and so I just want to make sure that this is the right place too. So thank you for answering that.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
Good question.
Very good. Do any other any other commissioners have questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, well then why don't we move to the public hearing portion where we allow people to participate in the meeting. So as we mentioned previously or earlier in the meeting, we've received some feedback. We may return to some of that feedback. We've received some feedback in written form already and by bettertogether.edina.org. If anyone is watching this meeting tonight that would like to participate and give testimony regarding this matter, you can call in and have up to 3 minutes to speak. We'll let you know when you're hitting your time. It's not necessarily a dialogue or question and answer session. It's just giving your opinion and your facts. If you would like to participate, please call 1-800-374-0221, conference ID 3098621, and hit #1. There's a little delay between our meeting and the video, so we're going to wait just a few moments to allow people the opportunity to call in if they'd like.
Chair Nemerov, this is Communications Director Jennifer Benarat. I do have two people on the line right now. Neither are expressing interest to provide testimony. As a reminder to those on the line and those who might be calling in order to speak, you need to press *1 on your telephone keypad. That's *1, not #1, *1. That will put you in the queue to speak. With that, one of them has stepped forward. Operator, will you please unmute the line of Mr. Rob Scholl? Rob, once your line has been unmuted, please begin by stating your full name and address for the record.
Hello, Mr. Scholl.
That line unmuted on our end. Liz, can you try to unmute the intercall line? Dan's messaging me that he's not able to unmute the intercall line.
Certainly, let me try. Just one moment, please.
Thank you so much.
Jennifer, unfortunately, the way that my meeting is working this evening, I don't have the normal capabilities to change my screen or unmute. If anyone else who has a WebEx account, this meeting was open to be taken over by anyone else that has an account might be able to do that at this moment. I will keep looking into it.
So Ryan or someone else, if you could please unmute call-in user 2, then we'll be able to hear our intercall.
Just as a note too, this is Liz. I just wanted to state that the commissioners did receive Rob Scholl's correspondence form that was sent out yesterday. In case there's any issues, what he submitted was given to the Planning Commission yesterday.
Staff Member Benarat, what do you recommend we do at this moment, at this time? Or
Our IT director is still trying to provide assistance. He's trying to log in to help. I think if you could just wait with me a minute, I'm also going to run down to the control room and look at that computer there. One moment, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is IT Director Ryan Browning. I am attempting to log in right now.
These Zoom meetings have nuances. I learned something last week. I was using a different computer for a Zoom meeting, and I put tape over the little camera part, and I hadn't used that computer for a while, and I took the tape off. It left a nice film on the camera, so I looked like I was speaking with everyone else from 1982.
Jennifer, as a second thought here, would it be possible to send Rob the WebEx invitation as another idea for him to join that way?
I have Rod's cell number. I could try and call him from my phone and see if he can talk through my phone to the council.
I'll send him that invite right now. Please hold.
I don't know what he's going to say, but.
Jennifer, there might also be an option to disconnect and recall through that call-in line, and that might remove the mute.
Rod literally just texted me and said we can try. I'll call you if that works, Brett. So I really am happy to do it if it's not working through the system.
I'm concerned about the quality that we would have, as well as the fact that there's another caller on the line who also wants to potentially engage.
Yeah, that's fine. I told him that
three people on the line.
I told him that we're sending him the meeting invite.
Is it possible to let does anyone else express interest in speaking? We could come back to Mr. Shaw.
Ms. Peggy Porter is also in the queue. Intercall, try to dial in a second time to see if we can't get a new instance going within WebEx.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm taking a look into the meeting right now, and I was having issues earlier before the meeting with permissions as a host with layout. So I don't know that I'm going to be able to, at this point, unmute anyone.
Left, so now they're just looking to rejoin.
Liz, do you know if you have a host key anywhere with your invitation that you can message me?
I will do that right now in Jabber.
Apologize to everyone for the technical problems.
Thank you, Ryan. I just emailed you the host ID.
Thank you.
It's like Intercall has reconnected. Don't anybody mute them. And as soon as they connect back to the speaker line, we should be able to start again with Mr. Rob Scholl. James is our operator tonight. James, as soon as you're back over in the main conference room, if you could try unmuting Rob's line, and then we will give Rob a shot here. Rob, can you hear us?
Your
Can
line
you
is
try
now
to go
open.
ahead?
Yes, this is Rod Scholl at 4217 42nd Street. Hello?
Yes, Rob, please go ahead with your comments.
Anyone?
Sure. Thank you for your patience.
No problem. Thanks for everyone joining. I appreciate the work the commission does, and Brett and his wife engaging us throughout this. I'm assuming that everyone's read through the perhaps embarrassingly extensive submission that I put in today. In the interest of, I guess I would call it civic duty, and my belief in the comprehensive plan and the life cycle living, and our hope for that property being used for a retirement home or an entry-level home, or somebody who works in the area to also live in the area. So with all that being said, it seems we're in the fortunate position of just having a disagreement based on math, which makes things simple. Looking at my calculation of 1,700 square feet, I forget the commentator, but they're correct that I erroneously included the 3-car garage in that calculation, and it was not my intent, should not have. I saw the cutout, and that was actually below the garage. So stripping off of those 700 something square feet puts the house at 7,012 square feet finished. That, of course, counts the forecourt twice, because it's through 2 floors. We're still at 3 times the average square footage in the neighborhood, and still roughly 50% higher than the nearby houses. So I think the argument still stands. But if we don't want to take my word for it, and given that there's no square footage on any of the plans, one option could be to make a contingency in the approval to keep the size of the house, say, at 6,000 finished square feet or below. That gives them some wiggle room. I would concede that the other houses in the area, the 5,500 square foot house in there, I think a 5,000 square foot, and I think that'd be a good compromise. And if my 7,000 number is wrong, then we don't have to sort that out. Other than that, I thank everyone for their time and look forward to either Brett and Sarah or other neighbors living in that property. All the other points that I think I made, I disagree with some of the comments as far as excavation occurring early. I have my concerns, but I think those are all well voiced in there, and I appreciate people, their interest in reading through it all in detail.
Thank you, Mr. Scholl. Communications Director Bennerat, do we have anyone else who wants to provide testimony?
We do. Operator, will you please unmute the line of Ms. Peggy Porter? Peggy, your line is open.
Your line
Please
is now
begin
open.
with your full name and address.
My name is Steve Porter. We live at 4206 Crocker Avenue. My name is Steve Porter.
Mr. Porter, please turn down your television or whatever device you're watching it on, and then just go ahead and make your remarks. Then you won't hear the echo.
Steve Porter.
Mr. Porter, please turn down your television.
Okay, how's that?
Perfect.
Hello?
We're hearing you better. We're hearing you better now. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. My name is Steve Porter. I live at 4206 Crocker Avenue. And my comments are that I believe the house wasn't designed to fit the lot. I believe if it was designed specifically for the lot, the setback variance may not have been an issue that it is today. It's unfortunate that this house will disrupt the conformity of the other houses on the street by being built 18 feet forward of the average setback. It's going to interrupt the sight lines, and those are my comments. Thank you.
Porter?
Thank you.
Communications Director Bennerat, are there anyone else in the queue?
We do have one more person on the call, but no one has indicated a desire to provide testimony. As a reminder to anyone on the line and anyone who is still working to call in, once you've connected, please press *1 on your telephone keypad to get in the queue to provide testimony. Again, that's *1, not #1. #1 will actually take you out of the queue. *1 will get you in the queue. And with that, we have another person ready to testify. I show a name of Susan Grudel. Operator, will you please unmute her line? And then, Susan, please begin by stating your full name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Susan. Hello, my name is Susan Grudel, and we live at 4213 Crocker Avenue. My husband and I have lived at 4217 West 42nd Street from 1996 to 2009. We moved into our current house in 2009 and have lived here since. We built our house in 2009 without any variances to comply with Edina's guidelines to be aligned with the essential character of the neighborhood. We built our house with 2 sump pumps for extra backups that are diverted to the southeast corner of our lot. Until 2014, they never ran. Since then, they run periodically depending on the amount of rain each year and has increased as the building has increased within Morningside. We met with an engineer today to come up with ideas on how to mitigate and are researching our options. It has been running limitedly since the last 2 weeks. The first approval of this variance was based on water holding tanks being put in to help the neighborhood contain the water, and this new plan does not do that. Our greatest concern is that we believe the front yard setback of 18.2 feet is excessive and unnecessary and goes against the city's comprehensive plan and the essential character of our neighborhood. We would suggest that the front yard setback be moved back to 8 to 10 feet, which would have the front of the house be in line with the neighbor's property line on the north side between 4217 and the corner. And that would be that's where our suggestion is as a compromise. This would assist in having the front of the house being in closer alignment to the other surrounding houses and be more in character with the neighborhood. One way to accomplish this would be using the original grading plan submitted on January 29th with the retaining wall further back. Then the house could get moved back to 8 to 10 feet to meet this setback and maintain the water holding requirements. This plan does not show standing water, which we believe would be better for the health and safety of everyone. This design also protects the surrounding properties from water as it is level throughout the back of the property and would reduce the pond effect of the property, as there's currently a pond back there due to the grading and the scraping of the ground during the demolition. The second concern is with the grading on the south front of the house. It shows water runoff with arrows running to the street. However, the elevation shows that the water would run onto our property and create additional water issues could occur on the front of our house. We would propose that a swale be put in to the plan on between our property lines. We have spoken with Sarah and Brett, and they are okay with this, but it's not shown on the plan. We would like swale to be written, elevations corrected to show a swale so the water does not run onto the street and not our property. In closing, we'd like you to not pass the front yard setback of 18.2 feet, as we feel this does not keep with the character of neighborhood, and they don't have practical hardship as there are other alternatives to move the house back. We believe there should be a compromise.
We're at 3 minutes.
All right, Ms. Grudel, thank you very much for your details. Do you have one final comment that you'd like?
Yeah, I'm just going to say I really want to compliment Julie. We as neighbors have learned a lot about water, and she has been patient and kind and attentive, and you're lucky to have her.
Thank you for your comments. Communications Director Benarott, do we have anyone else in the queue?
I have anyone in the queue, nor have we picked up any new callers.
Should we wait, or are we okay to move forward?
I would recommend you wait just 1 minute or so in case there are any new callers who were prompted by the last comments.
Okay. At our regular meetings, we also have an item on the agenda when we meet in person called community comment that allows members of the public to come and speak for up to 3 minutes on anything unrelated to tonight's agenda, that evening's agenda. Because we're meeting remotely by Zoom, we're not having those. Although technically we're not. Are we meeting by? I can't remember. Are we on Zoom? We're on something or another technology. I guess a joint meeting.
It's WebEx.
WebEx, yeah.
Dear Nemrov, I think it's safe for you to move on at this point.
I move to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Ms. Olson, could you take roll, please?
Thank you. Commissioner Berube?
Aye.
Commissioner Agnew?
Aye.
Commissioner Miranda?
Aye.
Commissioner Strauss?
Aye.
Commissioner Thorson?
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett?
Aye.
Chair Nemerov?
Aye. And so now it's an opportunity for Planning Commission to have discussion. Before we do, though, I'd like to follow up on some of the comments, and there might be a split between development staff, engineering staff, and the applicant with these questions. I'm just going to kind of go through the top here. Planner Ocker, one commenter talked about counting the sport court twice. What is standard in assessing square footage for
Thank
a
you,
two-floor
Chair.
room?
It would be just the square footage of that sport court floor because there's a ceiling above it. It's not considered 2 floors.
And that's just standard for two-floor rooms. Okay. Another, also for you, Planner Ocker, I think a few people commented basically on what would be how the front setback variance does or does not affect the character of the neighborhood. Staff recommendation is that the house will fit with the character. Maybe could you elaborate a little bit why you think that this front setback would not affect the character of the neighborhood?
Sure. The home that was torn down is at the setback that they're trying to recreate. So there's already been a home on the lot for many years at that particular setback. Granted, it was a Rambler. Edina is a little bit different in terms of how it handles front yard setback for single dwelling units. It's an elastic setback. Every time somebody tears down the house, they have the opportunity to either match the homes on either side's average or all along the block between intersections. So that standard does change even on the block, along the block, depending upon where somebody wants to put their house, either further back or meeting the average or the average of the homes on either side. For example, the home to the south that was rebuilt was originally in 1951 built at 80 feet back. It now has I believe, a 58 point something foot setback because they utilized the average along the block to move that house up to the average. The average now has changed a little bit to 56 some odd feet, 56.7 or something like that. So it's not a standard that's written in stone. Over time, it does change. The homes are a mixture of different styles. I mean, I think I showed some examples of that at the very end of the PowerPoint presentation. I didn't show any of the ones that are original, but there are many of those too. And then there's also, you have to look at the lot widths and sizes. This lot happens to be 90 feet wide. You go a little bit further south and they're all 50 feet wide. They're almost half that. There are some larger lots across the street and here and there. So it's a mixture. I guess if you're asking me what the character is now, it's what you see out there right now. Will that change or could it change? Absolutely.
Next, two questions for Mr. Bintner, although I don't know if Ms. Marquez is still on or not, but Mr. Bintner of the City Engineering Department, perhaps you can answer these. One, we got a comment about using the original grading plan and moving the retaining walls. Could you respond to that? I believe you kind of answered that earlier in your presentation, but
yeah, I think that would be a question better answered by the applicant. Either one of the proposals has met the performance standard, and those are all decisions that are based on the trade-offs that they're making.
We'll come to the applicant in just a moment. I have one question for you now. We have two. Just a follow-up for Mr. Bintner, and this may come to the applicant too. Then depending, we had someone else mentioned a ponding effect. What's the city's position on creating a pond, or what, and the impact of ponds, and what could be done about that? Does the city have a position on that?
A homeowner could create a pond if they so chose. I don't think that's the intent to this plan. I think the logic behind some of the questions is, could a 10 square foot hole be built a mile deep, and then that would take care of the standard? Well, eventually you get into groundwater, and then it's going to be full of water, and it won't serve a flood purpose. So we didn't require a survey of the groundwater, but we have a good sense for the level of groundwater in this neighborhood, and it's generally set by the existing homes and their sump pumps. So the existing basement levels are what creates the groundwater in this urban area. So we don't have any concerns that they're digging a deep hole that won't serve its purpose.
Okay, I thank you. That was a good answer. Although I'm wondering if the question or the thought may have been a little different. That the water treatment being planned here is going to create like a pool of standing water. And if the city has a position on standing water in the yard, are you saying that's okay? That would be okay if it's, as long as it's holding the water.
Yeah, the choice to build a pond is possible. We have homeowners who have built ponds. Those are generally much larger lots, and they're an aesthetic purpose. I don't think the purpose here is to build a pond.
Right, now we'll come to the applicant. So maybe we'll come to start with that one engineering question about moving the retaining wall and using original grading. If you could just, I think you commented on it earlier.
Yeah, I'm obviously not exactly from our understanding. There's nothing. Sorry. From my understanding, there's nothing. Even if we went back to the original plan, we would have to have the same setback variance because the pipes are underground and we wouldn't be able to build on top of them. It would be, it's possible, anything's possible to do, but it would be exorbitant, like the cost would be exorbitant to do that. And so we have to be able to store, it's just over 25,000 cubic feet of water, and any move of the house backwards, unfortunately, reduces our storage capacity, whether we're using underground storage containers or not. Because all the underground storage containers are doing are just a big area that water can flow into, right? And so it doesn't, it's still taking up the same amount of space as just having it open does. I actually tried to do that. Like, I actually proposed that to our engineer. I actually tried to say, can we just move this back further and do so? That was actually one of my recommendations to our engineer that we hired. And I was told no, that we wouldn't be able to hit the storage capacity.
Thank you. And then finally, somebody mentioned a swale between lots. Is that something that you've discussed and thought about?
Yes, we've talked about. So we actually went back and talked to our engineers, and I guess the concern is that water will be standing water between the two property lines. And so basically, we reconfirmed that with what we're doing, we're actually preventing. I think that on the call, the engineering team actually talked about how it's actually making it better for the backyard storage by making the water flow back to the street versus having the potential to go back into the back lot. So I actually think we are improving that and improving the chance that doesn't happen with the plan that we have in place. And I think Ross touched on that earlier. But honestly, if there's standing water between our two properties, we'll fix it once. But I think we have it fixed already, and it shouldn't be an issue. But if there is, certainly, I wouldn't want standing water between our properties either. And that's what I told the Grudels, and that's what I've communicated to them.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Broll. Other planning commissioners, it's our opportunity. Do you have any follow-up questions from our discussions or from what we heard from the public, or do you have any comments you'd like to share? Mr. Commissioner Strauss.
Yes, we approved, we approved it, the last variation. The only changes was handling the water, and I thought Mr. Bittner's explanation was all the confirmation that I needed. Seems to me pretty straightforward. They found an alternative to make the project go, and the professionals are okay, agree with that. So it seems to, so I don't see any problems with this. Thank you.
Gary, any other commissioners have comments or questions? Commissioner Berube?
Are you looking for general comments now or questions particularly to the applicant?
At this time, whatever you'd like.
Okay, so following up on Commissioner Strauss's comments, so, this came to us in March. There were two things to discuss. One was the allowing a variance for the height of the first floor to increase. And we approved that. That didn't seem to be much of a discussion. And then the bigger discussion was, do we give the variance for the front yard setback? And there were two things that informed my decision. And one was that it was going to be resting on the current footprint of the legacy home. And the number two was that it allowed for what needed to be done to address the water situation in the backyard. And at that point, we're talking about underground tanks. So what we hear today, in my mind, is no different. It's just that they found that the underground tanks are not feasible. They're not going to be able to get a mortgage. So that's not something that is their fault. They found a solution that's comparable, perhaps better. They'll be giving up some use of their backyard, but they're okay with that. As far as the water problem and mitigating that for their backyard, it's equivalent to what we approved before. So in my mind, we're not talking about anything but, is this comparable to those underground tanks? And does it have the same efficacy as those tanks? It sounds like it does. Perhaps it's even better. So because we've already approved this, and this is an equivalent or better substitute for what the issue is, I don't have a problem with this.
Commissioner Berube. Do other commissioners have commentary they'd like to share, or motions if they? Any further questions? Commissioner Agnew.
Yeah, I have a quick comment. Sheila, I think, did a really fantastic job just kind of summarizing, so thanks, Sheila. It's concerning to see the concerns of the neighbors. We received multiple letters and we had multiple people dial in tonight with their concerns. And so I don't believe that our role is to set standards for what specific square feet a house should be, unless that's something that we're deciding to take on as a part of a complete, like within the comprehensive plan, for example. And so I think Sheila, like I said, did a really nice job of summarizing it. It's unfortunate that there is some disagreement in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Miranda.
Yeah, so I guess I'm a little confused about how this $160,000 or whatever it was cheaper solution wasn't the original solution. Is it just that they're getting a little less backyard space? Is that what it's amount to? Or I mean, why wasn't this presented first, I guess?
This is
I can answer it, Mike, on our side. So we thought this was something that we considered. The goal was with the pipes, underground pipes, it would give us another basically 30 feet of more usable flat backyard. And so the goal was to have more usable flat backyard, which is why we wanted to go with that solution, which we actually knew was going to be potentially a little bit more expensive, but not what we expected. But the whole purpose was to have more usable backyard.
Okay, thank you. So I live in Morningside, and Morningside has a huge water management problem, and it's been a problem for existing houses and new construction and whatnot. So I'm pretty sensitive to this issue. So I kind of keep going back and forth on this. I mean, I agreed with it last time. So, I mean, looking at the street in terms of the setback, if you look at the history of the block, I mean, actually the whole history of Morningside, the higher elevations, areas at the tops of the hill, basically, not in the lower areas, were all built first. And they were built, those houses are kind of early 20th century houses. They had sidewalks, and the houses were built up to the street, and kind of what you typically see in an early 20th century house, which is where I live actually. So if you're looking at setbacks, you look at the street, the average setback is a little closer to the street than their neighbors because the houses at the top of the street, which were built a long time ago, are much closer to the street. If you look at the houses immediately adjacent to them, though, which were built post-World War II generally, those are much further back. So I was kind of struggling with that. And on the other hand, they are next door to the houses that face 42nd Street. And as you can see in some of the images, the neighbor on the corner has a garage that's basically further forward on Crocker than their house. So the house is sort of a compromise, sort of in between, as close as it could be from the house that's on 42nd Street and the houses that are nearby. So I've gone over this many times in my head, and I think I see that it is sort of a compromise there, and that even though it is much closer to the street than their immediate neighbors to the south, the neighbor to the north is closer. And somebody recommended, a caller said they should be as far back as the second house on the street, and that doesn't really seem very appropriate. So, because the neighbor to their north could build another garage and it would still be further forward. So I see that as sort of a compromise. It's kind of in between. So I'm okay with that aspect of it. But then on the other hand, you look at the height requirements. It meets the height requirements. There's no problem with that. But those height requirements are done based on the assumption that they're meeting the setback requirements. So it's not meeting that. So I guess the way that I look at that is that because they are providing basically a giant water containment area in their backyard, and they have no backyard, that's the price they're paying to be able to bring the house closer to the street and have the height. So this is one of those things that I went back and forth on many times. I can see it from multiple angles, but I think because of the water storage that's going on in the backyard, I think this is something that really is needed in the neighborhood, and I'm willing to give up, the height to allow them to have a higher building. So my conclusion basically is that through all this thought, basically I've thought this through a lot, and because of all these mitigating circumstances, I think it makes sense the way it's been proposed. I don't think it's ideal for anybody, but I think it's a compromise that I think works.
Commissioner Miranda. Commissioners Bennett or Thorson, you don't have to, but would you like to share any thoughts? Okay, Commissioner Thorson, I've got a response from Commissioner Bennett. I think I've gotten a response too. So I guess if I was to summarize, I just excerpt from Commissioner Miranda and say makes sense. So does anyone wish to make a resolution one way or another? We've gotten good communication.
I move approval of the variances subject to the conditions and findings outlined in the staff memo.
Thank you, Commissioner Thorson. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Strauss. Is there any further discussions? Before we vote, would any planning commissioner like to say anything further, respond to any of the other comments?
I just want to make a comment that I really respect the effort that some of the neighbors went to provide really thorough, very detailed comments, including, sketches and photos. And clearly this is an issue that's important to them. And I want to make sure that they know that those things were read and considered. And, I hope it doesn't discourage people at all from continuing to make comments. In this case, it didn't sway my opinion, but I did read them. So thank you for the people who sent in your comments.
Thank you, Christian Berube. I completely agree. The comments we received were excellent. I think several other commissioners feel the same way. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Olson, would you do a roll vote, please?
Thank you, Chair Nemerov. Commissioner Berube?
Aye.
Commissioner Agnew?
Aye.
Commissioner Miranda?
Aye.
Commissioner Strauss?
Aye.
Commissioner Thorson?
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett?
Aye.
Chair Nemerov.
The matter passes. But does this go to council now, or is that a final approval? Commissioner Planner Ocker.
There's a 10-day right of approval, so if the neighbors or somebody wishes to appeal to the city council, they may, but after 10 days, if there's no appeal, then the variance stands.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the applicants and good luck.
Thank you all. Thank you all. We appreciate your time. Really do.
Thank you. Thank you. The next item on our agenda for the evening is reports and recommendations. I guess the simple question is, are there any?
I don't have a report, but I have a comment. I actually have
okay.
2 comments.
All right, why don't we do them now?
If this is the time to do them.
Well, we have chair and member comments coming up.
Oh, okay. I'll hold on then.
We'll probably be there in a moment. Okay.
If there were a report and recommendation, it would be listed. Otherwise, I think that just formats automatically into your agenda. So there's no reports or recommendations tonight.
Perfect. Next comes to correspondence and petitions. We received some correspondence about a matter we heard a few weeks ago. Carrie, do you have any commentary on that? Is there anything we should be doing with those comments, or?
Are you referring to the sketch plan comments?
Yes.
Yeah, we've been receiving those, city council as well. We've already been through the sketch plan. A lot of them were the similar comments that we heard at sketch plan. So now really the ball is in the court of the developer or the property owner if they'd like to move forward with a formal application. They may choose to come back for another sketch plan review.
If the developer comes back with another sketch plan or another plan, and I assume there could be some change from what they showed last to what they would show next, what do we do with these comments that we've received? They're probably useful to the council. I think the council already gave a sketch plan review also, right?
They did.
So will those people who commented have to submit new comments, or how do we?
Yeah, we would want to encourage anyone to submit new comments on a new plan. is that you're right. The plans will likely change, hopefully significantly. Yeah, we would want to see new comments on new plans.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other correspondence? Well, let's go to chair member comments. And, well, Commissioner Agnew, did you have a question about the correspondence?
I did. Are we able to share those correspondence also with the developer so that they're taking that into account for their next round of sketch plan or proposal?
We do typically, so this is unusual. We usually don't get comments after a project has already been reviewed, so this is very unusual. We can send those on to the developer. We do, in the course of the normal, whether it's a sketch plan review or a formal application, the developers do see those comments.
Thank you.
Good process point. Chair member comments. I think I'm going to go to Commissioner Berube to start with.
All right. So I just wanted to say, sometimes we have projects that are somewhat controversial or have a big impact on the city. And so we get a lot of comments, and oftentimes people are fearful of what will develop. So there are two that I just wanted to point out. One is Nolan Main's. I was in that area because I was visiting their new, one of the new restaurants in the space called the Lynn Hall, which recently opened. They had a soft opening. And I was there thinking, this is great. So even though, sometimes we pass these, we approve these projects and you kind of hold your breath and hope that it works because you think it will and you're pretty confident that it's going to be the right decision, but you don't always know until it's built what it's really going to look like. I was down there at the Lynn Hall and the base of Nolan, Maine, and I felt that was great energy. And despite COVID and it being not as busy as it might otherwise, it had a good vibe. There's great energy. There's good public space. It looked good, and it made me really confident that that was the right decision, and that's a real asset to the community. And then similarly, I walked by the apartment building at 44th and France, and I think it's called Avidar. So, it's not occupied yet, and they don't have the restaurant or the retail on the first floor, so it didn't have quite the same energy. But I think it looks great, and it isn't nearly as imposing as some people feared. That little pocket park is finished. And the only thing I would say is the pocket park looks like it's part of the apartment building. It doesn't really look like a public space. So it would be great if there could be something to draw people into that. But I think it's an attractive space. It looks good. And, I'm hoping that other neighbors feel the same. So I just wanted to make those comments that, it's you don't always know what it looks like when you pass the project or approve the project. And I'm happy to see that both of those have worked out really well.
Thank you. Any other members have any comments? I had one, and that's just to thank everyone for the work session tonight. I thought we had a very good discussion about parking. Everyone has a lot of good ideas. I'm sure if we had more time, we could really dive into it, dive more deeper and move faster, but we're doing a good job, and I'm sure we're going to make more progress at our next meeting. But thank you, everyone. It was a very good discussion. Any other member comments? Commissioner Miranda.
Yeah. I just wanted to thank Commissioner Berube for stealing everything I was going to say tonight, because I also have been by Nolan, Maine, and in fact, I have reservations for the Lynn Hall later this week. Once I heard about it, I was really excited about it because I've been to their other location in Minneapolis, and it's a really nice place. And you just go to Nolan, Maine, and the area. And, it was designed with public space and it's just the building and the area around it, really, I think is a testament to, how density makes an area fun, interesting, and vital. I mean, it's going to be where people congregate. Again, because of COVID, it's intermediary right now. But once that a year or so from now, when things are back to normal, we hope that's going to be a gathering spot. I mean, that's going to be a place that is going to be a hallmark for the city and something that I think we're going to be really proud of. And I wasn't part of the approval process. I'm congratulating everybody else who did that. And then also the Lorient is the building at Sunnyside in France. And I found out today that it's actually the name of a city in France. So it sort of makes sense that it's not France. But anyway, that replaced this, awful. I mean, now I go to the co-op and I come out of the co-op on 45th Street, I believe it is, and you turn out and you're on 45th Street and you're so used to seeing, if you live in the neighborhood, you're so used to seeing this horrible, decrepit building, that was like literally falling apart. And now you see this amazing, beautiful building, which again isn't complete, but I think is going to draw a lot of people out of the neighborhood into a congregating space, which we have some of those, there's restaurants nearby and such, but this is, I think this is going to take it to another level, and I think it is really nice. I also want to thank, I believe it was Commissioner Jimmy Bennett, might have been other members who are not with us anymore, who talked about transparency along Sunnyside Road as you walk down there. Because I think the developer originally was going to have some sort of shutters or something covering the parking space underground. And now it's windows and it's transparent. And even though looking at parking isn't the most exciting thing, it's certainly better than just having a blank wall there. And, in terms of safety, eyes on the street, that sort of thing, the fact that you can see in, they can see out, makes probably people feel safer who would be in there. But ideally, storefronts would have been great there, but I think it was a good compromise for what it was. And I thank Commissioner Bennett for really pushing that. I remember him pushing it really hard at the meeting. So I think that building has really, it's funny when they put these buildings up and they've got that, they're half built and they look really imposing and everything. And then you put the surface materials on and then it's like, oh, wow, it doesn't look scary at all anymore. And I think it's just a huge benefit to the whole neighborhood. So. And the parklet seems really nice. The benches are spaced far apart, so it's good for social distancing, I suppose, for this year. I thought there were, in renderings, I thought there was a table or tables or something in there, which might have given a little more comfortable space. But anyway, and they kept a tree there and planted a bunch of new trees. I think it's really nice.
Lou. Commissioner Strauss, did you have anything you wanted to share? Yeah, I just wanted to. I thought the Lorient was attractive. Also, I do want to. If there is something, as Sheila said, to make that park look a little more publicly inviting, that would. If there's something that can be done, that would be it. That would be the one thing. Staff comments. Does staff have anything to share?
Just to update the commission from the last city council meeting. As we mentioned at the work session, the council did approve the 2018 comprehensive plan. So congratulations again. That is now in effect. They also passed on second reading the ordinance amendment that you've been working on regarding affordable housing, single stall garage, and the design experience guidelines, codifying some of that. That York Gardens site plan where they added they did some remodeling there, that was approved. And as mentioned earlier, they did review the sketch plan. Many of the same comments that were shared by the Planning Commission, a lot of concerns. So as I mentioned, the applicant is retooling and maybe back in front of the commission again with a sketch plan. That's it for me.
Yeah, on the sketch plan for 6800 France, I think several members of City Council specifically called out members of the Planning Commission for saying, yeah, like Commissioner X said, I feel the exact same way. So, that was nice.
Several times. Yep.
Yeah. Does anyone have any further comments or questions for staff?
Hey, this is Jimmy. Just wanted to first thank Lou for the words of encouragement, and second, at least Bill Newendorf reached out to Sheila and myself So we know that there's some traction going with conversations in the 44th and Frontier about district parking. Maybe it's old news to everyone else, but at least it's encouraging too from the standpoint of like what Lou mentioned is like, you know, if we believe something strong enough, we should really hold that conviction and stand our ground. And, you know, getting the city to act, you know, to start having those conversations with something I think that we were pretty forceful with a couple months ago, and now it's happening. So I just thank fellow commissioners for, you know, putting on the pressure where it needs to be and, you know, standing up for what we believe in. Thanks.
Thank you, Jimmy. Anyone else? Get a motion for adjournment, perhaps, at that point?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Liz, could you do a roll, please?
Thank you. Commissioner Berube?
Aye.
Commissioner Agnew?
Aye.
Commissioner Miranda?
Aye.
Commissioner Strauss?
Aye.
Commissioner Thorson?
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett?
Aye.
Chair Nemerov?
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.